Most airports are boring by design. Long, flat runways, wide open space, every possible margin for error built right in. But a few airports on this planet throw all of that out the window. Runways that end at the edge of a cliff. Landing strips that vanish under the ocean tide. Approaches so terrifying that only a few dozen pilots on Earth are even allowed to attempt them. These are not the airports you stumble into by accident. They are the ones pilots talk about in hushed voices. So today, we are counting down 7 of the most dangerous airports in the world in 2026, ending with the one that will make your palms sweat just looking at it. Number 7. Gibraltar International Airport. Picture a runway. And now picture a busy 4-lane road cutting straight across the middle of it. That is not a mistake. That is Gibraltar. The main road into the territory, Winston Churchill Avenue, physically crosses the active runway. So every single time a plane needs to take off or land, barriers come down and stop all the car and foot traffic. Exactly like a railroad crossing, except instead of a train, a passenger jet roars across the road. As if sharing a runway with rush hour was not enough, the airport sits right beside the towering Rock of Gibraltar, which generates fierce, swirling crosswinds that can shove a landing aircraft sideways at the worst possible moment. It is one of the only places on Earth where a traffic jam and a jet landing happen on the very same strip of pavement. Number 6. Princess Juliana International Airport on the island of St. Martin. This one is famous, and for a reason that is equal parts beautiful and terrifying. The runway begins almost exactly where the sand of Maho Beach ends, with only a small road and a fence in between. So incoming jumbo jets descend so low over the heads of sunbathers that you can feel the heat of the engines and read the rivets on the belly of the plane. Tourists line up on that beach just to feel a wide-body airliner pass a few dozen feet above them. But the real danger is not the landing, it is the takeoff. When a heavy jet powers up its engines for departure, it blasts a hurricane of jet exhaust straight across that beach, strong enough to throw a grown adult through the air and into the rocks and water. People have been seriously injured, and a tourist has even died from standing behind a departing jet. It is gorgeous, it is unforgettable, and it has a body count. Number 5. Barra Airport in the Outer Hebrides of Scotland. This is the only airport in the world where scheduled passenger flights land directly on a beach. There is no concrete runway at all. The 3 runways are simply marked out on the wide, flat sands of a tidal bay, and small aircraft touch down right on the wet sand. And here is the catch that makes it genuinely dangerous. The runway is only there when the tide is out. At high tide, the entire airport is underwater, completely submerged beneath the sea. So the flight schedule is not set by the clock, it is set by the ocean. Pilots have to time their landings around the tides, racing the incoming sea. And if the timing or the weather is wrong, the strip they were aiming for simply is not there anymore. It is flying by the rhythm of the tide, and the tide does not wait. Number 4. Madeira Airport in Portugal, on a stunning island out in the Atlantic. The problem here was geography. The island is steep and mountainous, with very little flat ground, so the original runway was far too short. The solution was an act of engineering madness. Instead of cutting into the mountains, they extended the runway straight out over the ocean, supported on top of around 200 enormous concrete pillars, like a giant table standing in the sea. So you are landing on a platform held up over open water. And the conditions make it brutal. The surrounding mountains and the ocean combine to produce violent, unpredictable crosswinds and turbulence that slam into aircraft right at the moment of touchdown. Pilots are required to get special training and certification just to be allowed to land here, and videos of planes wrestling sideways through the wind over that ocean runway are the stuff of nightmares. If your stomach is starting to drop just imagining these places, take 1 second and subscribe, because the final 3 are where the runways leave the flat world behind and climb into the mountains. And number 1 is on a completely different level of fear. Number 3. Courchevel Altiport, high in the French Alps. This one serves a glamorous ski resort, but there is nothing glamorous about the landing. The runway is staggeringly short, only about 500 meters, and it is built into the side of a mountain, which means it is not flat at all. It is steeply sloped, with one of the most extreme gradients of any runway in the world. Pilots land going uphill, using that steep slope to help them slow down in time, and they take off going downhill, using gravity to help them get airborne before they run out of mountain. And here is the part that removes all margin for error. there is no second chance. The terrain makes a go-around, where a pilot aborts the landing and circles back to try again, essentially impossible. Once you commit to that approach, you are landing, one way or another. Only specially trained pilots are allowed anywhere near it. Number 2. Paro Airport in the Kingdom of Bhutan. Tucked deep in the Himalayas, this is the only international airport in the entire country, and reaching it is one of the most demanding feats in commercial aviation. The airport sits at the bottom of a deep valley, completely surrounded by jagged Himalayan peaks rising as high as 18,000 feet, towering over the runway on every side. There is no straight-in approach and no automated guidance to follow. Instead, pilots have to fly by hand and by sight, weaving their aircraft between the mountainsides, banking through the valley, dropping fast, and lining up with a runway they often cannot even see until the very last moment. It is so difficult and so dangerous that, by most accounts, only a few dozen pilots in the entire world are certified and trusted to fly into Paro at all. And they are only permitted to land in daylight, in clear conditions, because in those mountains there is no room for a mistake. And number 1. The airport that tops nearly every dangerous airport list on Earth. Tenzing Hillary Airport, in the village of Lukla, Nepal. This is the gateway for climbers and trekkers heading toward Mount Everest, and getting there is the first dangerous test of the whole journey. The runway is shockingly short, only around 500 meters, and it is perched on the side of a mountain at nearly 9,000 feet of altitude. It is steeply sloped to help aircraft slow down and speed up, just like Courchevel, but the surroundings are what make it truly horrifying. One end of the runway drops off the edge of a cliff into a sheer plunge of thousands of feet into the valley below. The other end runs straight into a solid wall of mountain. So a pilot landing at Lukla is aiming for a tiny uphill strip with a cliff behind them and a mountain in front of them, and absolutely no option to abort and go around. Add in the thin mountain air, the sudden fog, and the fast-changing weather of the high Himalayas, and you have what pilots and experts consistently call the most dangerous airport in the world. People fly into Lukla every season because it is the doorway to Everest. But make no mistake, the most dangerous part of climbing the tallest mountain on Earth for many travelers is the landing they do before they ever take a single step. So there they are, 7 airports that ignore every rule the rest of the world flies by. A runway crossed by traffic in Gibraltar. Jet blast over a beach in St. Martin. A landing strip swallowed by the tide in Scotland. A runway on stilts over the Atlantic in Madeira. A ski slope strip in the French Alps. A Himalayan maze in Bhutan. And a cliff-edge landing in the shadow of Everest. These are not careless or broken places. They are the opposite. They demand the very best pilots in the world, precisely because everything about them is so unforgiving. For most of us, the closest we ever want to get is watching from a safe distance. Subscribe, because next, I am revealing the airports with the most beautiful approaches on Earth, the ones worth flying into just for the view out your window. Until then, may all your runways be long, flat, and very, very far from the edge of a cliff.